No, of course
But
not.
some asshole who's not the author is claiming it
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
time.
No.
Anyway, let's have our regular introduction now. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Blather 273, Homegrown Threats. An asswipe, Ammar Abdulmajid-Mohamed Said, who could have guessed, was charged with planning a deadly attack on a U.S. military base here at home for ISIS, according to the Department of Injustice. So far, so good. We have come to expect that, and thanks to the Biden shit show, there are a few thousand more jihadists roaming free in the fruited plain. But there is a second type of threat, and arguably a much worse one: homegrown revolutionaries. They don't have funny names, they don't genuflect facing Mecca, they don't wear funny woven skullcaps, and they don't speak with a weird accent. Unless you consider Southside Chicago to be home to people with funny accents. This threat is not a child of Mohammed from ISIS. He is the child of Eric of the SEIU. While Daddy Dearest was falsifying absentee ballots at your local home for the elderly or attending the State of the Union Address joint meeting in Congress at the behest and invitation of Congressman Jesus Chuy García, a Mexican bracero who became a U.S. citizen in '77, a political ally of Bernie Sanders and the Teachers Union and Brandon Johnson, and has tirelessly worked to undermine capitalism, free markets, and civil liberties, where his engagement with the corrupt Chicago Democrat and Socialist establishment permitted. This very local product of Chicago's anti American advocacy apparatus of community organizers, God, I hate the term, and other such vermin, gave us Elias Rodriguez, the psychopathic nihilist of the PSL, Party for Socialism and Liberation, an organization of few members and much money working to save the planet through the destruction of capitalism. You cannot make this shit up. Who this week murdered in DC as coldly as he did cowardly two beautiful people for the horrendous crime of being Jews. When there are thousands of Saids, there are hundreds of thousands of Rodriguezes on our streets, college campuses, and even in the halls of government. The same vermin who gave us the violent summer of 2020, Antifa, Occupy, anarchists, and myriad organizations that look to the violent revolutionaries of the '70s for inspiration. Well, we should not drop the guard in the face of jihadist Islamic National Socialists that threaten us every day. We should stop pussyfooting and raise that guard to the enemies 50 years of anti American indoctrination have created inside our own homes. The bastard children of Marcuse and Adorno, Fromm and Ginsburg, Bill Ayers and Assata Shakur, Obama and April Verrett, financed by ActBlue, Organizing for America, Catholic Charities, you'd be surprised, and other enemies of liberty are here to stay. They are the force behind campus anti-Semitism and the pro-Hamas movement. Treat them as the terrorists they are. Of course, this is Saul Montes Bradley, the largest human repository of useless information, and right next to me, there, I almost did it wrong again, Thomas Victor, the only living expert of World War I flamethrowers, a connoisseur of the corruption of Mexifornia, and expert on the depravities of Governor Newsom. And yeah, you're laughing because you know it's right. And we're here to give you, a few hours of our time if you'll have them. And it's about we start. So, Thomas, what a shit show!
Well, you mentioned our governor. The California voter voted to recriminalize crime. They passed something called Proposition 36
Mhm.
that would put people back in jail for committing crimes. And so what the governor did was he shut down our largest prison, and all the inmates are going to be freed, and the new people arrested will have no place to go, so they'll be immediately released. So this is clearly and unambiguously um, a sign that the governor wants the voter. He wants to punish the voters with death for voting for something like this. And Newsom has always struck me as an idiot, um, just not a bright man in the slightest.
No.
But he's also shown himself to be an incredibly vicious man, because to close our largest prison for no reason other than to defy the voters who voted to put criminals back in prison, shows you that I mean, this is okay. Newsom is going to run for president, and he's adding on to all the things that make him unelectable outside of California, and he has no defense against this. You can't defend what he's doing by closing this prison. There's no rationale. It's just simply, and he's not closing it. He's just defunding it. So he can argue, I didn't close anything, but he did by defunding it. And he did it simply to punish the voters for defying his will. And he's going to run for president, and he's going to,
How dare them?
yeah, no, he's going to be demolished. The tide has turned, and it's picking up speed. We're seeing. I saw there's a black racist on TikTok who started out by announcing her proud racism against white people, and she started getting absolutely hammered by African immigrants. So now she's spending all her time attacking African immigrants, and African immigrants are making their own response TikToks in response to this woman. And I saw a really good one, and it was, the woman didn't say where she was from, but she said that everyone in her African circle, she said that there's a difference between what she calls blacks and what she calls Africans. Blacks, she says, are Americans. And she said in her circle, every African has a present father, unless the father died. They don't get divorced, and they're there to raise the children. And it's really fascinating to see this being played out, because these are people who came to this country and don't have the woke mindset. They think racism against white people is ridiculous. Of course, we do have South Africa, but South Africa is, the country's always been mentally ill, regardless of who is running it. But the people who wanted to become Americans, they're not like the South Africans and the Zimbabweans who did the same thing that the South Africans are doing. But it's just really fascinating to see all this being played out, because the tide the tide turned, and now it's picking up speed like much faster than I would have expected.
Hello.
Hi.
By the way, I can hear myself through your microphone.
I can hear myself when I speak too, and it sounds like it's coming from your side.
Well, it isn't.
All
Do
right.
you have the speakers or the earphones?
I can put on the earphones.
Let's
We
give it
haven't
a
had
try.
this problem in a long time.
I know. It all depends on the alignment of the stars, you see.
I guess so.
Yes, today we have Jupiter in ascendance with Mercury. By the way, what I'm saying is gibberish. I'm just making up. I have no idea about these things, nor do I care to know. But Jupiter in ascendance with Mercury, and Venus is backfucking Mars. So that's when we get the echo. You got it there? No, look at that.
All right. We'll do this
Okay, now,
until the problem goes away.
yeah, now I can see now there is no echo anymore for me. So there we go. Uh, where were we before we were so rudely interrupted by an echo?
I don't know.
Neither do I. So let's pick up wherever we think. Uh, you were talking about Newscom
Hmm.
and his closing of the jails as a uh, almost sadistic reaction to the people of California no longer giving a shit about him. You're gonna miss me, you'll see, when all the rapists are loose on the street again. And sadly, uh, the people of California would forget within 2 months and vote him anyway.
Hmm.
Do you think there is
No,
any hope left?
no. I mean, if a Republican, if there were another recall and it was a Republican against Newsom, the state would vote for Newsom. So
Yeah,
um, they
no
they
question.
Californians are hopeless. They're not going to. California won't recover within my lifetime, and all the problems that Californians face are problems they inflicted on themselves. And um, the they the way I always look at it is any political problem is the fault of the voters, because a politician, you played me part of a socialist commercial. It was a 6-minute ad that was impossible to sit through because
Yes,
the claims were so retarded, and the women making them were insufferable.
you courageously made it into the third minute.
Yeah, and they can sell whatever they want. It's the voters that are responsible for electing people like that. You pointed out that the guy who shot the 2 Israeli embassy staffers came from that party.
Yep.
I mean, not only is he a murderer, he's an idiot. He's a blockhead. And
Well, come on, they're socialists, aren't they?
yeah, and they're also capitalists. There's no such thing as a real socialist in this world. Even the Khmer Rouge, as primitive as they made Cambodia, the higher ups were as capitalist as you and
Well,
I.
they have a little twist on the Marxian aphorism. What's yours is mine, and what's mine is none of your fucking business.
Yeah,
Piss off.
yeah.
And that's what they do. Why don't you tell Xi to give up some of the luxuries of his position to better feed the people of China? He'll have you within 15 seconds in some kind of basement in Beijing, where the secret police is going to teach you how unhealthy it is to make any reference to the quality of life of their leader.
Well, there was
The same
a
thing in Cuba, in Nicaragua, in Venezuela, in Russia, of course. It's not a communist country anymore. No, but they're all socialists at heart. It doesn't matter. It's a socialist country without the name.
I remember Fidel Castro in his old age. He would wear his military fatigues, and he would wear like these $2,000 zip up boots. They had a zipper on the
Yeah.
side, and you weren't supposed to notice.
No, and the
And
military fatigues, did you remember, were always spanking fucking new.
of course, and he lived in a palace. And the way socialism always works is that you have the head, whoever's in charge, surrounded by people, and they all live in luxury, and they go out and they say, we haven't finished the job yet, you need to vote for us some more, and the reason your health care is so horrible and all of this is, because you're getting a knife in the back from capitalists. And so vote for us again this time around, if that's assuming they have elections. I mean, you know um,
Oh, they all do. They all do. All communist and socialist and fascist countries have elections.
yep.
In some cases, elections are compulsory. If you don't vote, you get penalized. You cannot get a passport. You cannot get enrolled in school to ensure that you do your civic duty and vote, because they need to legitimize that shit show somehow,
Mhm.
and they do it by claiming they have 100% participation. Uh, I never understood, except that I pretend not to understand the obsession in this country with you know elections as an indispensable tool of a democracy. Well, elections do not define the democracy. Eh, most democracies have elections, but an election doesn't make a democracy. And in some cases, you have democracies, direct government, with no fucking elections to begin with.
Or in the case of
If
Europe, you have nominal democracies in which the people have virtually no power to change things, such as you know untrammeled illegal immigration, and you know essentially there are greater forces at work than the electorate. And you know um,
and there are several ways of doing this, by the way. Um, the entire election system in most of Europe, actually in all of Europe, with the exception of England or the UK, people don't vote for candidates; they vote for parties.
mhm.
And then, when a congressman dies or resigns or is expelled in the U.S., we have a by-election within a maximum specified period, and we literally have to go back to the constituents in that district or jurisdiction and have a new election to elect the replacement of the guy who croaked or left. Not in Europe.
Mhm.
Somebody croaks, the party sends a replacement from its substitutes, a list of substitutes. People who are elected to represent a specific jurisdiction did not come from that jurisdiction at all. And since the election is not done by districts, uh, the party that gets the most votes gets the most candidates in, and your position in that list determines your um, likelihood of going into parliament on the first try, and you owe your loyalty not to the voters of your district, but to the party boss who put you in the list within the top 10.
Well, and then you have countries with parliamentary systems where the parliament elects the president. And so
Yeah,
the president doesn't answer to the voters at all, really.
in an
The
indirect way, because the, they have elections every 2 years. The composition of parliament changes because the people's uh, opinions change, and then the prime minister gets a vote of no confidence, gets kicked to the curb, and we have a new one. It isn't direct, but at least that works. The problem is in England, the members of parliament are elected jurisdiction by jurisdiction, like we do in America, and they do represent the people of a specific jurisdiction. In the rest of Europe, they do not.
well, also,
They elect the president, but who the fuck elected them?
also, these countries have the power to bring down the government if they wanted to. They could do it once a week. Um,
Yes.
and
Well, in Italy, I think there was a year they had five prime ministers in 1 year.
yeah, and that's dysfunctional. You're never going to get anything done
Oh,
that way.
of course not. There's something to be said for that. You know what I always say. When Congress is deadlocked, I breathe easy. When they're unable to do anything, at least they're not screwing me.
Yeah, and okay, Trump has shown that socialist nonsense he showed me. They were saying there's no difference between the parties, and they quoted some guy from BlackRock saying there was no difference. He was
Yeah,
referring he was referring
yeah,
specifically to the financial sector. Um,
yes. He was saying that no election is truly the most important. Over time, they're all the same.
right, and so they took what he said completely out of context.
Yeah,
And out of all the people in the world to quote, they chose the CEO of BlackRock or whatever.
right.
And they're wrong. I mean, the difference between the Republican Party today and the Democratic Party today couldn't be more stark. Um, you
Oh,
know,
and they say that BlackRock has $11.5 trillion. No, they don't. They have $11.5 trillion under management. That money is your money, my money, his money, all the money of people with 401ks and IRAs who invest in BlackRock funds. It's not their money, which is another way these people make it up. Um, Notice that all of her points, anti-war, BlackRock, Uniparty, all of her points are exactly the same as the Magatons. And
and
I
the
don't think it's a coincidence.
well, and the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, Ocasio Cortez,
Yes, same shit.
and these are all childish points to make. That once you reach a certain age, this sort of stuff doesn't appeal to you because you've been through enough life to understand that what they're saying is horsemanry. And the notion that, okay, in the case again of the Israeli staffers who were murdered by an American socialist, what did he accomplish? He didn't accomplish anything. What this guy didn't know, and what no socialist American knows, is that the Israelis, for the first time ever, are fighting Hamas completely gloves off. And they're using weaponry and technology that they've never used against Hamas. And this is going to be over very, very quickly. They've killed 3 Sinwars in a row, and I guess, okay, they released some documentation of a super secret meeting that Yahya Sinwar had with the Politburo of Hamas. explaining why October 7th had to be carried out, because they had to derail the Abraham Accords with the rest of the Middle East. And then they said that after the attack was successful because now the Saudis and the rest of the Middle East were on the side of the Palestinians. And it's like, in what world?
In what alternate universe?
Yeah. So these
You know,
people,
Yahya Sinwar was obviously a degenerate, but he cannot be accused of being particularly intelligent or a statesman or an expert in foreign relations. Whatever the fuck his opinions were about how to affect the foreign policy of Saudi Arabia are totally worthless. The man lived, he spent his entire life in a fart bubble. And I don't know why people would say, oh, you know, he said that, who cares?
well, also the Saudis agreed to adopt a very austere, to say the least, form of Islam in 1979 to preserve the existence of their country. But the way they sabotaged that was by educating everybody they could in the West. So your average Saudi knows everything about the West and knows everything about Saudi Arabia. Yahya Sinwar did not know a damn thing about the West.
Or Saudi Arabia.
And the one very notable aspect of this final war between Israel and Hamas was the universal lack of support for Hamas in the Middle East. Yahya Sinwar was looking forward to the support from the Iran proxies, and he eventually got it from Hezbollah to a certain degree. He got it from the Houthis to a certain degree. But he was expecting, everybody in the neighborhood to open fire simultaneously on Israel. And of course, it didn't happen.
Well, that was the plan. That was the plan. And the plan was that Hamas, Hezbollah, Fatah, the Houthis, roughly a dozen militias in Iraq and Syria. And Iran playing quarterback were going to invade simultaneously, and it was going to be such a quick takeover of territory in Israel that by the time the West woke up, there would no longer be an Israel, and they would have to leave with the new status quo. This is what the plan was. Crazy as it sounds.
Of course.
Of course, it couldn't fucking work, and it didn't work. And Israel managed to destroy Hamas, destroy Hezbollah. The Houthis are against the ropes, and Iran is lighting candles to the Virgin Mary now, seeing if they can avoid being bombed into the Dark Ages. But it's only a matter of time before they do get some pretty precise bombing that ends their nuclear ambitions. And that'll be the end of it and the beginning of a new Middle East. There is no longer Hezbollah, there is no longer Hamas. In Lebanon, they're beginning to reorganize for the first time since the Civil War. In Syria, I have my serious doubts about al-Julani, and I know you do too. But what the hell is a completely different environment? Yes, there are a lot of things that need to be done, but at the same time, from releasing the documents of Eli Cohen, which was an act of kindness towards Israel, that was noticed. But maybe some people out there know. Eli Cohen was an Israeli Mossad spy who penetrated the Ba'ath Party before they got to power, while they were organizing in places like fucking Argentina. And he went on to be the minister of security in Syria, and until he was discovered and hanged for it. And of course, all of his documents, including letters to his wife and all the jazz, were never released. His body was never released. And now the government of Syria is releasing all the information they have on him to Israel as a gesture of goodwill. Well, it works and it's well received. Eh, there is no
Well,
question that there are problems, but there is no question that there is a, an effort on the part of Al Julani to approach Saudi Arabia, the US, Israel, and turn Syria into a viable state at peace with its neighbors.
I don't
Will I say the
think
same thing a year from now? I don't know.
I don't think since Mohammed bin Salman personally asked Trump to meet with Al Julani, um, I don't think the Gulf Arabs are going to let Syria. The claim is now okay. The claim is now that Syria is in danger of falling into another civil war that'll be even worse than the last.
Yeah, who's gonna fight it?
Also, I don't think the Saudis are going to allow that to happen. Not after they've you know
The Israelis already destroyed nearly all the ammunitions warehouses in Syria. There are no chemical weapons. There are no conventional weapons. There are no missiles.
well, also
There's nothing to fight a war with.
everybody there basically has pickup trucks and rifles. Um, and I think the plan, okay, I can hear my voice echoing even through this. Can you hear me echoing?
Yes, not now.
All right.
I don't
Anyway,
know. I don't know the folks over there in the
any-
stream, but I don't.
okay, what I was saying is that I think the plan is to allow Syria not to break up completely, but to become multiple semi-autonomous
Yep.
regions. I think that's the plan. That you're going to have the Druze in one place, you're going to have the Sunnis in one place, the Syrians in another, and then the Kurds in a fourth.
Yeah.
And I think there will be a centralized government, but it won't be centralized in the sense that it will rule the entire country with an iron fist. It's the most dire predictions about Syria simply haven't come true, and the fact that Giuliani has met with Trump and praised Trump. I've seen Syrians out in cities celebrating Trump's recognition, and whatever areas they were looked no different than some places, Dallas or something.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that the region, the power brokers in the region, are going to allow Syria, after all this time, to just collapse into another Syria
No,
civil war.
of course, a lot of people don't like it. Beginning, starting with the Iranians who
Of
lost
course.
their main ally and access to the Mediterranean. But
Right.
screw them. By the way, remember that I uh, Poser indexes here. We were talking about people who are not statesmen. Bannon says populism and nationalism are on the rise globally. Let me say this, Thomas. I know you don't always like it when I'm so direct, but Bannon can suck my genital situation. The guy is a fucking fascist. eh, and I don't say that as an insult. I don't refer to his moods or his style. I refer to the fact that he's a proponent of a regulated economy controlled by the state. I'm referring to the fact that he's a fucking social justice warrior for the social doctrine. And he has left enough of his fingerprints in Dignitates Humana, working together with Jorge Bergoglio, who I do not lament, and anybody who thinks that Bannon speaks for anyone is out of his fucking mind. Yes, there are places where nationalism is on the rise. There are places where liberty is on the rise. And frankly, populism is for the fucking birds. Populism is nothing more than demagoguery with a fancier name. And nobody should be happy that populism or Nazi onanism are on the right. Patriotism is on the right in some countries because they have been so long dominated by supranational superstructures, like, say, Spain, France, Italy, that are subjugated, or rather, they are placed in a position subservient to bureaucrats in Brussels. And a lot of people say, fuck that. But they're not nationalists in the sense of the nationalists of Bohemia in the 1920s. So it's bullshit. And frankly, if you have to quote Bannon or use Bannon as a reference, you need to study a lot and you need to open your eyes, baby, because this is shit.
Well, the Europeans don't understand American patriotism because the Europeans tend to support either globalism or ethno-nationalism. And the notion of an American-style patriotism that encompasses all ethnicities, all races, and all classes and everything is alien to the average. It's alien to most of the world. Most of the world it separates itself among tribal lines, and the United States, despite all the people always trying to gin up problems, Black Lives Matter had a march in Los Angeles this last weekend or week or whatever, and it was like, you guys are still around? I mean, it's they'll be able to do stuff in Los Angeles, but the rest of the country has moved on. It's never going to happen again. We're not going to have a summer of love again.
No, but we may have a summer of blood coming up.
Well, that's the thing that, and even that, okay, you and I were talking about this, the Weather Underground, for example. The Weather Underground hit its peak half a century ago. The Trump Department of Justice is not like any other Department of Justice. And the ability of the feds to, okay, during the first Trump term, Trump did something quite brilliant. He combined the armed bodies of every possible federal department into rapid reaction forces. So in any particular rapid reaction force, you would have Bureau of Prison, you would have SWAT from the Railroad Retirement Board, you would have Department of Education officers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you're armed, you're a Fed, you have the ability to arrest and fight crime, you're in. So yes, I think we are going to have things, but I think the crackdown is going to be extremely severe. This attack, this murder of the two Israeli staffers, there's no real support for this guy. There was support for the guy with the eyebrows. What the fuck's his name? Luigi something or other.
Luigi Mangione.
Yeah, there was support for him, but it's sort of petered out already. And this guy is getting no support at all. Of course, there's nutters who support him, but okay, Hassan Piker is complaining on a daily basis that he's being investigated by the feds, and I have no doubt that he is, because he's a terrorism supporter, and we don't actually know where he gets his money. He's obscenely wealthy, and I guess his parents are wealthy, but still. So if there's a crackdown and somebody like Hassan Piker gets swept up, it's going to be pretty dramatic. It's going to have a quite a cooling effect on everything. All these people claim that they're under surveillance now, and they're getting no sympathy from the general public.
No. And by the way, whatever happens with Elias Rodriguez will tell us where the wind is blowing. Leo Terrell, and as a matter of fact, I like Leo. I think he's a good guy.
Just before you go on, Leo was a rabid Democrat until Trump came along, and then he switched to a rabid Trump supporter.
Yeah, and every now and then I'll find something, but he's a good guy. He is now in the Department of Justice. And he's kind of in charge of this kind of shit. And he was saying how there's no doubt we're going to go after him with a hate crime. And I'm thinking, hate crime, my ass, whatever the fuck happened with terrorism? And under federal law, if you kill somebody in the performance of an act of terrorism, you are a candidate for the death penalty. I want to see how they treat him. If they treat him as a murderer, or as a hate murderer, or as a terrorist. If they treat him as a terrorist, the message is clear for the rest of them assholes. You do what you do, we'll fry you. And that may actually have quite a deterrent effect. If they're treated, a hate crime, so maximum of 20 years, in 10 years is walking the streets again, you got to be out of your mind.
Well, he's talking about enhancing it. He's not going to get 20 years for a double murder. He's going to get life. There's no doubt about it. But
he's going to get the chair.
Yeah, life for the chair, or Trump.
He's got to get the chair. If you want it as a deterrent, if you want to tell these little children of socialist agitators out there that playing the revolutionary has very real consequences, and that is smoke out of your balls, then it's going to work. Anything else, when all they have to do is wait 6 years for somebody to issue a pardon to them, like Obama and Clinton and Biden pardoned terrorists who bombed New York City, Chicago, the Pentagon, the Senate, the House, and they all got pardons in the end, or commutations that are tantamount to a pardon. If they think they can get away with that, they're not going to stop.
Yeah,
if they can smell the fried chicken smell of human flesh in the electric chair, they'll probably find a different activity to channel their anxiety.
I don't see this getting completely out of hand. I don't see this happening very much, very many more times. I think it will happen again, but I don't know. I saw a police video, and they went into an apartment, and the guy, it was an ambush, and he converted his semi-automatic rifle to fully automatic, and he opened fire and shot 3 cops, and they were all shot multiple times, and they all survived. And then he barricaded himself in his bedroom, and they sent the SWAT in, and basically they all just stood outside the bedroom and just emptied their rifles into the bedroom, and then went in and checked the pulse on the corpse, and that was that. And it was very matter of fact. I can't remember which state it was in. I think it was Colorado. And I just see, you hear the Border Patrol saying all the time that you know, we're finally being allowed to do our jobs. I just see that, I feel that there's this massive change that's happened, that there's no longer this, okay, blue states will continue to rot. Okay, I saw it was outside of Seattle, and this female to male transsexual with a tattooed beard was going from door to door dressed as a UPS delivery guy, and the cops came and they said, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm you know, come here, get over here, put your hands on the car." So they searched her and found a pistol, and they said, "Are you a felon?" "Yes." "Okay, that's another charge. You're casing everybody's joint. You know, this isn't Seattle. We take care of business out here." So they handcuffed this woman, and she went, "Oh," and she fell on the ground and started faking a seizure. And they started laughing at her, and then they turned her over on her back, and the cop did this thing. He started rubbing his knuckles on her sternum, saying, wake up," in this big, like, fake way. And the person started going, "Ow, ow, ow." And he said, are you okay? You know, so it was outside of Seattle, and like, they had this person packed in the police car in a matter of minutes. And you know, in the area, somebody had called and said, "This car has been parked here for 8 hours, and the occupant is going from door to door, checking all the houses of the people who are at work." And just the statement that everyone picked up on was the cop saying, "This isn't Seattle." So Los Angeles and San Francisco and Seattle and Portland and New York City and probably Austin and Minneapolis, they'll continue to rot. Chicago will continue to rot. McDonald's just left Chicago.
Yes. What are they gonna do there?
Exactly.
This is like the lunch place for half of Chicago.
Can you imagine things got so bad that McDonald's would have to leave Chicago?
This is like getting Dunkin' Donuts out of Massachusetts.
Yep. So
You know,
the Democrats are going to go. I told you that David Hogg said that Jasmine Crockett is the ideal candidate going forward, and he's serious.
he probably has wet dreams about her.
Well, they're going to do it. They're going to go Ocasio-Cortez. I saw she's still making these little videos from her apartment. The woman can't speak. You and I, we speak for 3 hours.
She can't do teeth.
Yeah, exactly. No, you and I speak for 3 hours at a time. Ocasio-Cortez cannot get she cannot get 4 sentences out without a lot of stuttering and you know, searching for words, and then when she finally does get her sentences out, she's not saying anything of value anyway. And she's going to be the face of the party, and she's going to be who they're going to run in 2028 for president. I have no doubt about it. And probably Jasmine Crockett's going to be her running mate.
Bernie just did a dry run on her. You know, with the fighting the oligarchy bullshit.
Yeah.
It wasn't very promising.
No, but they're going to do it anyway.
Very promising.
They're going to do it anyway.
Before I move on with the chat, 2 things. One, Deb, happy birthday to you. You are a pain in the ass sometimes, and the biggest helper we can have and we very much appreciate you, and I hope you have a great day. Um, now, oh yeah, can Trump get the EU to make a coordinated decision about tariffs? No, it's not necessary. The EU has been making coordinated decisions about tariffs for the past 50 years. People seem to forget that if the tariff thing was started by the freaking EU.
Mhm.
Why don't you have Corvettes or Mustangs or Caddies on any city in Europe? Because they are uh, 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 tariffs tariffed out of the market. So they put tariffs on every American product. They put tariffs on anything from American cars to American cheese, from American wines to American planes. They don't need anybody's help to get a coordinated policy. In the 90s, we were talking about Fortress Europe, remember?
Mhm.
Well, it's still there. People talk like Trump invented tariffs. He's only trying to even the field a little bit. And Europe does not need Trump to show them how to have what was the word? Oh yes, a coordinated decision about tariffs. They
Well,
coordinate all right.
the Europeans see themselves as indispensable to the U.S., but in the past 10 years, the European financial output has dropped by half. So how important are these people who were committing suicide? I mean, exactly. It's it's incredible. And they're just going to keep going. The Germans elect a conservative, so he says, "Okay, I'll make a deal with the Greens, um, and I'll rule as a Green."
Yeah, we're gonna save the planet ending capitalism. They can go fuck themselves.
Yeah.
Gonzalo, in reference to your sternum rub, use the first distal joint in the thumb, dig a groove in the sternum. Feels
Mhm.
great.
Yeah.
Ah, by the way, it hurts when I'm doing it to myself very
Yeah.
lightly after
Yeah.
two or three. Yeah. Oh, no, thank you. I'm gonna try with the next asshole that I need to. Stellantis probably won't survive without tariffs. Stellantis is the child of tariffs, and no, they wouldn't. And it's kind of like all of the broken uh, auto companies that couldn't sell a car anymore bundled together to see if they can do something. I always when you put together two very poor people, you don't get a millionaire. You get two very poor people.
Well, okay. Think about it. Um, I've seen this. I've seen this spoken about. The American poor live better than almost the entire
The
world.
upper middle class in France.
Well, almost the entire world.
Oh yeah, no, the entire world it lives so far below the level of poverty. The middle class in France don't have the quality of life of our poor.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get areas in upstate New York, in Virginia, with a median income of $43,000, and we consider them depressed areas.
Mhm.
And they are beneficiaries of all kinds of incentives for business loans and for subsidies because we need to develop those areas. You get tax breaks. It's a beautiful thing, by the way. $43,000. The
Mhm.
median income in France is 23.
Mhm.
So our poor areas in need of is special investment for development and considered poor have twice the median income of France.
Mhm.
There is no point of comparison. There is no point of comparison. And I'm sick and tired of telling my friends where the working people of Madrid or London or Paris live. They're fucking broom closets.
No, I
They're
mean
broom closets with a toilet.
if they're lucky. I saw the smallest apartment for rent in London, and it was the space under a stairway.
Yes.
It you open the door and there was a bed, and I guess there was a place to hang your clothes,
And that, yep.
but you had to use. There was
You share the downstairs bathroom with
yeah. There
three
was no
more
running
apartments.
water,
Yep.
no shower, no nothing, and the rent was unbelievable. It was like $3,000 a month or something.
No, that must have been in Knightsbridge. No,
Yeah.
you can get more decent rents in London, but of course not in Knightsbridge or St James.
Well,
No,
what's okay?
definitely not. Yeah, you
Look
have
at
to go a little farther out.
look at the wealthy in London. They talk about the $2 or $3 million house, quote unquote. It's a row house. It's a row house. It's got neighbors on either side of the wall. You're paying millions for this thing, and you've got people, you can hear them at nighttime. It's like unbelievable, and that's their
No, when I,
wealth.
when I had an apartment in Knightsbridge many years ago, back in the days when money wasn't an issue, it, it was £3,000 per week.
Mm-hmm.
Because rent in these areas of London is per week.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to buy, you don't really buy, you lease.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes what you're buying is the remainder of the lease. There are 23 years left on the lease. And that's what you're buying. Because then the property reverts to the Lord who owns it. And they're not about to give it up. Generational wealth has a different meaning in England.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, it's in Madrid today. You can rent an apartment for 800 bucks or so, but that 800 buck apartment, I'm serious, is considerably smaller than this dining room where I'm sitting now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, You look at the cars, you look at food packaging, you look at everything in Europe, and you realize that what they're doing is spreading misery and trying to survive on a shitload less than somebody living in Stuyvesant Park in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. But anyway, that's socialism for them.
Yeah.
And in the case of the European Union and tariffs, uh, for crying out loud, people, wake up, smell the coffee. China never opened its markets to American products. There was never reciprocity. Not only were there tariffs, there were non-tariff barriers, currency manipulation, additional taxes, and you can't have free trade with those barriers. Trump is kind of like waking the world up and saying, "Listen, asshole, the free ride is over,"
Oh, and
and he's bringing it to work.
that's why they're so angry.
Oh God, and that's why their partners here are so angry. You want to know who is a shield for China in the U.S.? Just take a look at who's bitching about Trump's tariffs on China.
Well, it's everybody. It's. I mean, we're talking about the homegrown threats. We have an
Yes.
entire political party that's a homegrown threat. And the press are homegrown threats. Like they're now claiming that there was absolutely no way that they could have known that Biden was unfit to serve mentally because nobody told them. That's what they're saying.
Well,
And
they
it's
should
like,
have listened. They should have listened to Beer Blather on January 20th, 2021.
well, not only that, the press, it's not the press's job to sit around on their asses waiting to be told things. It's their job to investigate. It's their job to find out things. And
I thought
so,
their job was to know nothing and speak truth to power. Whatever the fuck that means. Who comes up with this shit?
that probably goes back 50 odd years. That's like a hippie bullshit phrase.
Yeah. Speak truth to power. What the fuck does that even mean?
Well, what else do they say about themselves? Their job is to afflict the comfortable and comfort
And
the
comfort the
afflicted.
afflicted. Yeah, if they want to do that, go to a seminary, become a priest, asshole.
Well, also the press doesn't comfort any afflicted. I saw this picture. It was a starving African child who happened to be an albino, and this child looked like he weighed about 20 pounds. And he was so weak he was walking on all fours, not on his knees, but on his hands and his feet. And the photographer took pictures and then left. The photographer didn't save the child. The photographer didn't buy food for the child. The photographer didn't go out and have people take this child to a hospital. The photographer left. They don't comfort the afflicted.
I remember photographers who would have slapped the child to get the
The
prize
crying, yeah.
winning. Yeah, to get the child crying. I
Yeah,
knew people who did that.
of course.
One of them was an asshole that happened to die covering some kind of shit in South Africa. And you should have seen the eulogies and the obituaries and Time magazine. I mean, the guy was an asshole. And he's one that I saw literally hit a child to get the child crying. And he even joked at me, this may be my next Pulitzer. They're all garbage.
Well,
There's not a sympathetic one among the lot of them. I want to know who among the scribes of America, who among the ink shitters of this glorious land are denouncing the false claim of a blockade of Gaza. There is no blockade
zero.
of Gaza.
No, of course not. I mean, the reason I didn't follow the reason I didn't bother trying to disprove anything the Palestinians said this time around, because I did it in 2014. And I'll never forget when I was trying to discover the truth about what happened to the 4 Bakr boys on the beach. And I managed to speak to one of the French channel reporters. He was Irish. He was on the beach. The way it worked was that there was an explosion and all the reporters ran to the beach and they went to this, it was a shipping container, and there were 2 dead little boys in the shipping container. And with much wailing and yelling, Hamas there was 1 dead little boy. He was put on a stretcher and loaded in the back of the magazine. And then Hamas shooed all the reporters off the beach. Then there was a second explosion, and the reporters came back to areas that they had just been, and now there were 3 bodies there. So I asked this Irish reporter how he could explain that, and he said he couldn't tell me because what he had experienced on the beach, and this guy had also written his first article said that he saw this all happen from a hotel room. And then his second article said that he saw it all happen personally when he was on the beach himself. So I asked him how he could reconcile all this. And he said, I can't tell you because what I experience is my own personal story. And my own personal story isn't relevant to the stories of everybody else who experienced this. And it isn't relevant to you. All I'm doing is writing down my own personal story. And if you had been there, you would have had a different personal story. So I asked him, well, then why do you call yourself a reporter if everything you write is so personal that it doesn't
it's opinion.
Yeah, it doesn't apply to anybody else on the face of the planet. And he said, it was very nice talking to you. Goodbye. So that's the mindset of these people. What he was doing was he was rationalizing lying, making up shit, and saying it was his own personal narrative. That's what he called it. Not his own personal story, his personal narrative.
Well, that's what you do as a novelist, as an essayist.
Of course.
Where you give your impressions about the thing. What we are doing here.
Of course.
We're not delivering the news
No.
unless we specifically say so. What it is our impressions, our analysis, our how it affects us.
Well, it's
Like
commentary. It's commentary.
Yes.
We're commenting on things that are happening.
Yes. Somebody saying there, what do we think of the porcupus? I mean, not the porcupus, the big, beautiful bill. Uh, Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. Will it pass the Senate? Of course it will pass the Senate. In the worst case scenario, 50-50, with J.D. Vance breaking the tie.
Mhm.
And that's a worst case scenario. It all depends on Josh Hawley, who's ever the demagogue, and may want to, may need some exposure now, so he might oppose it for no other reason than that. I saw him the other day. He's as much a collectivist as Ocasio-Cortez lately. But yeah, of course it's going to pass. The biggest hurdles have been resolved, and yep, in the worst case scenario, it passes, but with one amendment, so it has to go to
Reconciliation.
reconciliation, and in reconciliation, the Republicans have all the cards. Thank you very fucking much. They can actually add stuff to it. I'm pretty damn sure that a Democrat is perfectly capable to vote for the bill to avoid it going to reconciliation.
Well, this is Congress we're talking about. So these guys know every possible way to get pork, to get shit for themselves, to pay off people who will donate to them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You personally, I don't pay too much attention to this sort of stuff because it's Congress. It's a cesspool. These people are all cesspool dwellers, and there isn't a single one that doesn't say one thing and then do the opposite, at least on occasion. So it's a world that I would not want to be in. I think that in order to be there, you have to make compromises that level of compromise would keep me up at night. They tell themselves little fairy tales to make themselves feel better about themselves.
Was it Otto von Bismarck who said that politics is the art of second best?
Second what?
Second best.
Yeah.
Because you're going to compromise, you're going to give up something, and you're going to get your second best choice.
What's also show business for ugly people,
Yeah.
It's got everything that show business has. I mean, think about it. As the Senate calls itself the most exclusive club in the world. That's disgusting. They shouldn't call themselves that. Um, and despite everything, they're all in love with each other. Like you know, maybe not so much now. Now that there's this new breed of Democrats who are insane and stupid, but in the past, when they were all adults, they were all in love with each other. You know, because they were all members of the same club. They made it. They were here.
God, speaking of things I don't give a shit about, is it possible that the salt deduction can be declared unconstitutional? No, but I understand it's good for circulation. Eh, no, of course, people, my darlings, Congress can tax your kidney stones. Period. End of story. And by the same token, they can decide what to tax and what not to tax. If Congress decides that people who pay sales taxes in states without income taxes can deduct them in lieu of the income tax that other states deduct, they can do that. They can not do it. They can do whatever crap they want. If it was up to me, your state charges you income tax. Well, fuck you. Move to some other state. It's non-deductible. I don't want to spread your misery to, carpenters in Iowa, so that they can share your pain. Uh, Personally, I abhor that. Now, can Congress do it? Yes, they can. They can, and they have been doing it, and they will continue to do it because the states that suffer, the ones without the income tax and all the jazz, don't have as many people as the states with the income tax. And when you are vote harvesting, uh, the more favors you do to the most amount of people, the higher the probability that you will have more votes.
No,
That's how it
no. I
always
mean,
works.
you hear people say war is a racket. War isn't a racket. Politics are a racket. And
Deb here, poor thing. It's your birthday, Deb, so I'm gonna be nice. She's saying uniparty. No, it's not uniparty. By the way, uniparty is what this bitch says.
No matter who wins this election, the truth is that we have a fight on our hands.
No matter who wins, Democrats, Republicans, they're all the same. If you want to talk like a socialist, go ahead, be my guest. I don't care. But I know you better than that. I've seen your comments now for 5 years, and I know you better than that, Deb. You're not a socialist. So,
well, the parties are diverging in a way that they haven't in a very, very, very long time. And the establishment Democrats have lost control over the progressive Democrats. There's no way they can stop them. And if the progressive Democrats continue to make gains, eventually the progressive Democrats will take over the party, and then you will not be able to call this, you will not be able to use the term uniparty anymore, because it'll be, what does Ocasio-Cortez have in common with J.D. Vance, for example?
Or Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz.
Or even Susan Collins.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, I never liked uniparty. I always said people, even though sometimes, they may find some common ground in the center, even though some may give up more than they should in order to have some kind of a solution. We have a party in America that is built on the proposition that we need to defend the individual rights of our citizens, that the individual rights of our citizens is paramount. That taxes should be the minimum expression, that our freedoms, whether it be to carry and bear arms or to speak our minds, are paramount. And there is another party in America who think that the rights of the Gestalt are paramount. That individual rights are not worth a farthing when there are children that go hungry in this country. And they think that social justice and egalitarianism trump your individual rights, you selfish son of a bitch. Those two positions are irreconcilable. And I know in some issues that can go from whether we tax, I don't know, gas or tires, whether we give a benefit to people who want to install solar panels in their houses or not, that doesn't define it. There is no uniparty. It's not the same thing. And anybody who tries to convince you that it is the same thing, that it doesn't matter, Republican, Democrat, they're all the same shit, is either a fucking communist or an idiot. I don't know. Was I clear or should I explain myself?
Let's see. Okay, if you think there's a uniparty, all you have to do is compare, say, Detroit to Dallas, for example, or San Francisco to somewhere in North Dakota, Wyoming. It's there isn't a uniparty. I mean, of course, you're going to find things that are common ground in both parties, both good and bad. But the problem is that the Democratic Party has decided that those who disagree with them are their enemy. And this is why you see more and more and more incidents where when people are asked questions, and they're not necessarily young people, college students, they're everyday, they're housewives. They're asked questions, political questions. How do you define a woman? And when the person can't answer, she starts punching the guy asking her the question. She's been conditioned to think that I saw a police video. A man and a woman came to whatever this state was, and they were going to be picked up by their daughter because the next day was the daughter's 18th birthday. They were going to celebrate it all together. So the daughter parked in the loading and unloading zone and wouldn't move. And the guy came over and said, "You have to move your car." And she wouldn't. So he started writing her a ticket. So she got out of the car and she went over to him and she smashed his ticket book out of his hand. Her parents came out and this guy called the cops. And he said, "Look, I got a bruise. I want to press charges." So they pulled the car over. She's driving. And they ask her what happened. She tells them, and they say, "All right, get out of the car." And then they handcuff her. So she starts crying. She's going, "Daddy, Daddy." And Daddy's saying, "I can't do anything." And they put her in the back of the police car, and she's telling them she has anxiety and she's going to pass out. And the idiot cops go get her father, and her father cuddles her and tells her it's all going to be all right. And then, just like clockwork, as soon as her little anxiety attack is over, she becomes a bitch. And she starts saying, "Well, nobody told me that." And the father's going, "Stop it, stop it. You're going to, This is not a Republican voter. This is not a Republican voter. This is somebody whose first response is violence and who thinks that she has every right to resort to violence in a situation in which she feels that the other person isn't in agreement with her. And when she's breaking the rules and she's caught out, she resorts to violence. And I don't know about you, but I've seen enough videos now of leftist women fisticuffing men. If any woman punched me in the face, I'd punch her right back. That's all there is to it. You know, equal rights and equal lefts. That's what it is.
Yes, it's not a question of being gentlemanly or not.
No, this isn't a woman.
I will never punch a woman. I will never physically attack a woman. Period. End of story. However, if it punches, I punch back.
Well, this is the thing. This person you punch, I will bet you my house that she's one of those people who can't define what a woman is, who refuses to define what a woman is. So to me, it's like, okay, you're an entity of no gender. So if you punch me, I'm going to punch you back, sir. But it was amazing. The guy tells you can't park here, and he starts to write you a ticket. So you go over and you smash the ticket book out of his hand, and you think that everything's going to be fine now.
Yeah, now he's not going to write it. He's going to say, "Oh, I'm sorry. I was overstepping my authority. Please park over here. I'll come back tomorrow."
Exactly.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to fucking happen. I see people arguing with cops on the road. I spend a lot of time on the road. I see so much stupidity out there. And occasionally I get stopped. Yes, it happens. Not often. But, in the past 5 years, maybe 4 times. And you can tell almost the relief of the cop when I do not confront them. My attitude is always, "Good evening, officer. Do you know why I stopped you?" "I don't have the foggiest idea, but I have the impression you're going to tell me." And usually, using a little bit of humor and common courtesy, it's rare the occasion when I do get a ticket.
Well, I've been stopped 4 times in my life by cops. And twice the cop had his hand on the butt of his pistol. And the first time was because someone had stolen the registration sticker off the back of my car. And an unregistered sticker or an expired sticker is usually a sign of trouble. And that guy, whenever I'm pulled over, I turn off the engine, put the keys on the turn off the engine, roll down all 4 windows, put the key on the dashboard, put both hands on the steering wheel. And I've gotten, out of the 4 times, I've gotten tickets twice, and I've been let off with a warning twice. And in one of the cases of the tickets, it was clear this guy was giving out tickets to meet his quota. And I didn't say that. I just said, fine. I had to go to driving school, and it was ridiculous, but I did it, and I didn't complain. The cops call, if you give cops problems, they call that failing the attitude test, and then they're gonna make up for it. And cops are only human.
They might be having a bad day too. You never know. I assume. Listen, we don't pay these people enough.
No, not by a long shot.
Not by a long shot. A guy working for the sheriff's department around here makes somewhere between 36 and 45 grand, which is most definitely not a shit ton of money for somebody who has to stick out his neck at least once a day.
Think about it. You have to deal with utterly depraved, unpleasant people, and you can die.
Yes. Every time, and of course, the riskiest situation for them are domestic disputes.
Domestic disputes and traffic stops.
They go They go to these places where you have these people screaming bloody murder that makes the what was his name? Oh God. Um,
Sam Kinison.
The Jerry Springer show
Mm.
looked like an evening with Peter Ustinov or the questions of the British Parliament. Uh, Savages, utter fucking savages. They ought to be out there in the National Geographic Channel. And when you're trying to discuss, or rather trying to get something clear out of Monkey A, Monkey B jumps you in the back because all of a sudden they love Monkey A again. I mean, you don't want to know what kind of shit these people go through. We
Well, it's
don't pay them enough.
interesting.
I will never add to their troubles.
On YouTube now, there's a video. It was a film made in 1963, and it's a battle between two different clans in New Guinea, in Papua New Guinea, and they're firing arrows and shooting spears throwing spears at each other. And the reason they've gone to war is that one clan member killed another clan member, and now they have to fight until the clan who killed the member loses somebody, and then the balance is restored, and it's all ritualized. And I was just watching this, and these guys are naked except for penis sheaths, and in their own way,
What?
A penis sheath. Don't you know what that is?
Hell no.
It's a bamboo tube that you put over your dick, and then you tie it to your waist, and it
I saw that in the Amazon. Yeah.
yeah.
Now I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's. I think Democrats are probably going to legislate those into use because it allows them to think they have a big dick.
Well, I'm surprised that I haven't seen one in San Francisco yet, but these New Guineans were more civilized than, say, your average Chicago gang member or some of the people we see being hauled out of Universal City in Florida because they're drunk and causing trouble. And it's quite amazing. I don't know. I despite everything, I'm very optimistic about the world. The world has changed dramatically. Right before we went on the air, there was a mass exodus of officials from Moscow. They all flew out of Moscow, flying government.
They're all my neighbors in Florida now.
Well, the Ukrainians have been hitting Moscow with drones, hundreds of drones every night. And tonight, over a dozen government planes packed full of government officials fled Moscow, but they went in all directions.
Yeah, mostly to the east.
Yep. So Trump Trump says that Putin is willing to get together with Zelensky again.
No, he's not.
I don't think so. But on the other hand, apparently there was an assassination attempt on Putin that was thwarted. So I think his days are numbered.
Been saying it for a while.
Yeah.
Let me get into this for 1 second. Everybody in the chat was talking about when I mentioned that, and you mentioned the standard of living in the U.S. versus Europe and all the jazz. I know that they're saying, an apartment in Madrid is $3,500. But listen, let me show you just one. This is an apartment for rent in Madrid. This is a listing. This is the building pool, little patios so you can have your barbecues. That's a kitchen area. And this apartment, 2 bedrooms, pretty decent, no mold, no shit. It's about $1,500. An older apartment, probably 800. 3,500, well, that's, like Fifth Avenue and 59th Street in Manhattan type of shit. So, my advice to people, don't take anybody's word for it. Go. Nowadays, you have all the realtor sites for every city in the planet. You can have a pretty good idea. You don't have to guess, speculate, or follow the lead of a moron. Um, just saying, because I saw that in the chat, and it's like, oh God,
Well, I lived in Europe.
you know what I did find?
What?
A villa in Tuscany, a beautiful, beautiful place. Ochre painted, huge fucking villa with 7 bedrooms, a, a beautiful vineyard, pool, tennis court. They're selling it for 400 grand. It's like, unless you can prove to me the place is radioactive, that is the deal of a century.
Hmm.
And that is because lately, property in Europe used to be far more expensive than in the US. Lately, it's cheaper. And I'm trying to figure out why.
Well, okay, it's obviously a buyer's market rather than a seller's market.
Yes.
And generally, when it's a buyer's market, it's because the economy isn't doing that well. And the Europeans, okay, Europe is you think we have it bad here with our illegals. Europe is being absolutely flooded. You see the countries where they have the fences set up, and these people are trying to tear down the fences and just trash the borders and go in and get on the dole immediately and start raping European women. That's literally how it is. Germany just had another mass stabbing event. This time it was 17 people.
Yep.
I don't know if
At a
any
mall.
died. Yeah, I don't know if any died. And this time it was a woman. The stabber was a woman.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, Germany, they deserve everything they get. These people are beyond moronic at this point.
Well, also this stuff never happened. I lived in let's see, the Netherlands, Norway, and the UK from 75 to 81. And okay, gotta tell the truth. In the UK, I was dodging IRA bombs. That's a bit different than a stabbing. But in the other two countries, you never heard about mass stabbings. Ever. Occasionally, there in the Netherlands, the Moluccans took over a train and a school on the same day, and they all had to be machine gunned by the anti-terrorism forces. So there was terrorism, but not lone wolf terrorism, like Red Army faction terrorism, Japanese Red Army terrorism. All of that did exist, but these nearly daily stabbings, lone wolf stabbings that all these European countries are suffering.
And the day is not a stabbing; it's somebody driving a car through the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And playing bowling with pedestrians.
Yeah.
Every day. But I do remember that for many years, living in European cities was absolutely safe. Even in London, when you say you were dodging IRS bombs, there weren't that many. There were just a handful. You happened to be in Regent's Park at the wrong time. But it wasn't a daily event. It was a weekly event. It was One in Regent's Park, another one in Bristol, in another city. It was a handful. For the most part, I remember walking around London at any time, day or night, and never had a problem. My only problem I noticed eventually was that beggars were a little bit more aggressive than the New York winos. Uh, there was an aggressive begging in London.
Mhm.
If they were offended if you don't give something, and their offense could turn into a fist attack or spitting or something of the sort. Um, Today is different. Today, you are constantly, um, at least in some cities, you're constantly with the threat of some kind of attack. Um, and it's not pleasant anymore. Although in towns, for the most part, it hasn't gotten there yet.
Yeah, I don't know. When you finally start looking into things and you start like seeing how dishonest the comparisons are between the United States and Europe. Europe is the big. Europe is the area that we're supposed to emulate in all ways. And having
No,
lived
no.
there, I would never recommend we emulate the Europeans in anything. Um, it's
Well, Jefferson warned you against it.
well, exactly. We fled Europe to create this country, so I don't see any reason why we would start copying it. But you know, I don't know. The Okay, right now the Democrats don't have any plans. They can't figure out what they want to do. All they're doing is opposing Trump to the point where if Trump says illegal alien murderers are bad, the Democrats say that's not true. Um, and he's basically got them where he wants them. He can control them, like playing like the fine. He's like the finest. He's like what was his name? The Italian violinist with the. He was a big star in his day. The 18th century violinist.
Not the violin maker or it.
No, he played a Stradivarius, but I can't remember his name. Anyway, women would pass out with lust when he played. But
Oh boy.
Trump is doing that to the Democrats, and they're not passing out with lust, but they're in
Paganini.
Paganini, yes.
Doña Sara came out and cajones. Yes, Paganini is the one you're talking about. Yeah.
Apparently, Paganini could touch three sides of a chessboard with his fret hand. So that would be his left hand. So with his left hand, he could touch three sides of a chessboard. I don't know if our chessboards.
That's why the women fainted.
Yeah, or are chessboards? Are they of a standard size?
No,
Yeah, I didn't think so.
that I know of. No.
Yeah, but it's this period. It's really fascinating because it's a great period of optimism, and it's also amazing to see. Just okay, I saw an arrest video where two ICE agents were arresting an illegal alien, and the guy with the handcuffs was wearing the balaclava and the bulletproof vest, and the other guy had no mask on, and he had a long gray ponytail, and there was this pink-haired woman trying to intervene, saying, "Where is your warrant? Show me your warrant signed by a judge." And eventually the gray-haired guy grabbed her by the wrists, and he said, "Look, if you don't stop interfering, I'm going to call a district attorney and I'm going to have you charged, and you're going to go to federal prison for interfering." So she stopped, but she was still demanding to see the warrant signed by a judge. And
Yeah,
it's like,
well, you're nobody to ask of it.
well, also, if this guy has everybody they're scooping up now, the criminals, they've all been determined to be criminals. There's no warrant signed by a judge to go out and arrest this particular guy. You know, he's already been determined to be a criminal. But when they arrest somebody, the judge doesn't sign a warrant saying go out and arrest. This is an arrest warrant. They don't have to.
Sometimes there is an arrest warrant. Sometimes you don't need one.
Yeah.
To catch a criminal in the commission of a crime, you don't need an arrest warrant.
No, and currently the ICE is spending its time arresting the known, the ones who commit crimes in addition to being here illegally.
With final deportation orders and all that jazz. By the way, to arrest that bitch interfering, you don't need a warrant either.
No, of course not.
She is interfering, period, end of story. Put the cops on her, throw her in the back of the paddy wagon, and let's discuss this in front of a judge.
It's so bizarre. These people, they all say the same things. They all think the same way. They all dress the same way. It's really eerie that you just see. I don't know if you've seen this. These women love to sit in their cars and scream, and so they've made these videos that they have like 24 little squares, and it's all screaming leftist women in their cars, and they're all identical. They sound the same, they look the same, they say the same words. It's really shocking.
I commented on one not long ago. I had to say something because there was this blob, literally a blob. She was a mountain of lard. And she was screaming into the camera, and you could see the piercing on her tongue.
Yeah.
Which I always found off-putting in ways that I can hardly describe.
It chips your teeth.
I don't know about the teeth, but it totally make a talk like this because the tongue is going to say, "Oh God, why the fuck would anybody do that to themselves?" So this ugly fatso, who obviously hated herself to the point of self-mutilation. When I say ugly fatso, she was ugly, and she was, you know that those faces that are almost triangular in shape, with all the fat accumulating in the neck muscles. It's a fucking pig, and this pig was giving counsel to what men should do to attract women.
Of course.
And she was saying, because I will never be attracted by. Please, that's what I'm going to do. I don't want you to be attracted to me, you stupid sow. But they're doing that. And there is a whole collection of them now. It's the latest. God, what makes them think that what they think is interesting?
The woman up the street who, God, we'd known, I don't know for how many years. When she got on social media, suddenly she was the world's greatest advisor on everything. And she had no factual knowledge on any subject. And she was on Facebook and Twitter, just telling everybody how to live their lives. And very, very disagreeable person. Always looking to pick a fight with a male. You could say, she asked me once, we were talking about what I found attractive in women. And I said, I'm not attracted to women wearing heavy makeup. And she got really angry at me. And I thought I was answering your question. And she would not let it go. And I didn't lose my temper, but she was like, you know, her voice was rising and everything. And it's like, boy, you don't ask questions if you're going to be afraid of the answer, you know?
Yep.
But I'm sure she went on to social media and started telling men how they should all love women with heavy makeup.
Well, she'd fail with me too. Some things are cultural.
Yeah.
Um, I remember in Paris, just about every woman, middle class and that, was always, with a perfect makeup.
Hmm.
And I always thought of them as slightly whorish. Because I come from a different culture, not necessarily better, just different, where we don't see makeup as a plus. Um, when applied, let it be applied sparingly. I always thought that a woman without makeup looked much better.
Well, I
But that
mean,
is but that is because of the way I grew up. It
I
doesn't
was
mean one is
always
better than the other, but in my family, that's what whores do.
I was always attracted to tomboys, and they never wore makeup.
Mm-mm.
The last woman I was with, she got a job anchoring a show on a Chinese language station, and she would come home wearing her stage makeup, and it's just like, oh my God, go to the bathroom and take that off. But
Mm.
I mean, it was shocking how much makeup they glopped onto her face just to put her in front of the camera, you know. Um, Foundation and mascara and lipstick
She,
and whatever it is that goes on top of your eyelids, and they made her eyebrows heavier, and boy, I mean, it was like a pound. It was like a pound of makeup.
ugh. Now, Gonzalo says, why do Parisians fear the other end? They don't fear the other end, it just confuses them, you see. Parisians recognize each other at great distances by the smell of the rats. It's like dogs. When you walk into a place, what is the first thing the dog does? Smell your balls. Because in smelling your balls, they say, oh, I know you, or who the fuck are you? That dogs and other animals recognize other animals by their smell. Parisians do too. And they say, oh, you must be my girlfriend. I know that smell. But the odorant throws them into a state of confusion. They need the bodily odors to achieve their comfort, knowing that they're surrounded by familiar as an armpit smells. Well, that's at least what I think. But
I found that the smelliest people I ever came across were Norwegians.
oh God, they don't realize that because they're constantly smelling rotten fish around them. So that covers the armpit odor.
Yeah, it was young women all stank of BO. Um, so you see this beautiful blonde Norwegian girl, and she'd get up close to you, and it'd just be like, oh, please. We when I was riding the train, I was on my way to Greece when I had my passport stolen, but the train was packed full of Scandinavians going to Greece, and we opened this car door, and like just the stench. It was like a fist in the face. And you know, they were all going to go to Greece and go to the nude beaches, and so that meant that whatever I was smelling, it was at least covered by a shirt, so that sort of blocked out some of it. But I can't imagine what the nude beaches would have been like. I would have needed a gas mask. But
Well,
yeah,
the good news for the nude beaches, one of the nude beaches they used to come down to was Bordighera. And I used to be there with my friends in the Lungobare, sitting, having a cup of coffee, usually wearing a scarf and a jacket because it was cold for us. And the Swedes and Norwegians would kind of flock onto the beach from a couple of hotels there in the Lungobare and go naked to the ocean. And you know, my Italian friends and I were just sitting at the cafe, having cafe, not a cappuccino in the afternoon, having some cafe and maybe, you know, some liquor to go with it. And literally at one point where we were uh, uh, using numbers to grade the beachgoers, uh, but they were sufficiently far away so that the smell didn't reach us, and sufficiently close so we could grade them. That's about the only thing you can do with Swedes at the beach, and it was usually in the winter time when Italians don't go to the beach. Everything is closed at the beach, but they would. But they would. What am I looking at? This they're still talking about the Madrid thing.
but the what?
Mid-career engineer in Spain is around 35 to 45 grand. That is correct. That is correct. Then they pay taxes galore, but you know they get an apartment for $1,000 and they live well. Of course, if they get a high-paying job in Zurich or in New York, they will take it. Although I know a lot of people from South America that are flocking to Madrid for engineering jobs because that 45 is amazing. But that's part of what I said. The average salary in Spain is less than half what it is in the US.
Yeah, the South Americans are going to Spain because Spain is heaven on earth compared to South America, and the Spaniards are coming here because here is heaven on earth compared to Spain.
Bingo.
So,
Uh, could it be why there is a huge sauna culture in these Nordic places? Listen, I have a sauna here in this house. I installed myself a six-person sauna just for the use of myself and my family. Eh, the question is that in winter, you don't sweat. And it's good for your body to sweat. So, not every day, but every other day, you go into the sauna, you get a nice little sweating out of it. Eh, and that's why I believe Nordics use it to fight the months of cold and no sun. You've been there, am I correct?
I can't remember. Yeah, I guess they had saunas in Norway. That's it. They had saunas in Norway, and traditionally you were supposed to go in the sauna, then you were supposed to go outside and roll around in the snow.
Yeah, or get a cold shower, either
Yeah,
or.
yeah. No,
Eh,
and the first time I tried that, I almost passed out. It was like, fuck this. This is
I
insane.
get the circulation going.
Oh. No, and they had like some kind of plant that you whipped yourself with.
Yeah. No, you can even use eucalyptus for that. With a branch of eucalyptus. And sometimes you throw a little bit of eucalyptus on the furnace so that you stink up the place with eucalyptus oils.
I just found that Norwegians didn't bathe very often. Um, they just like everybody had greasy hair, like long greasy hair, and they just didn't. they were all amazed that Americans showered daily. They didn't bathe very often, and they didn't like everybody. All the girls wore jeans, and the jeans were like that weird greenish brown color that it hasn't been washed in months.
Yeah. Well, usually at night when they took off the jeans, the jeans kept on walking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It was a completely different culture. I've never had more people offer to fist fight me than in Norway, and so you had these dirty, drunk, stinky people who wanted to fight you, and it was just like I don't even know why I'm here. Thanks, Dad, for bringing me here. Oh, there was a place called Pulpit Rock. It was this mountain. It was in a fjord, and it was a sheer rock wall, and there was this part that stuck out that looked exactly like a pulpit. And you would go up there, and there would be like a 2,000-foot drop down to the fjord, and there was a huge crack along the where the pulpit rock attached to the rock wall. And the legend was that when 7 daughters married 7 sons, the whole thing would fall off. And I remember there was a trail, and the trail was marked by red circles painted on trees. That was all. It was all rough. So we followed this trail up to Pulpit Rock, and it's a 2-hour climb. And I was lying on my belly looking over the edge, and it was the most horrifying thing I've ever done. And all of a sudden, next to me, I see these feet, and it's this fucking German tourist, and he's standing on the very edge of the 2,000-foot drop, leaning over, taking pictures. And I'm just like, I'm almost having a heart attack. Then he turns his back to the drop, and he's like, to his buddies. And then they left, and I was just so grateful. And then I saw that he left his little fanny pack, had his wallet, his passport, everything in it. So I start coming down, and about halfway up, here come the Germans. And I asked him, do you speak English? And he did. So I said, is this yours? And he's like, oh my God, I love you. And he hugged me, and he enveloped me in his German stink. And
ouch!
Yeah, it was bad.
That's chemical warfare. The Fourth Geneva Convention prohibits those weapons.
Well, he wanted to take me out drinking, and I knew I did not want to go drinking with a stinking German, because as grateful as he was, at some point he would start getting hostile because I was American and he was German, so he'd get angry at me for bombing.
It's only a matter of time.
Yeah, and so we parted ways at the base of the rock wall, and he went off to Germany and got married and had kids and died of a heart attack at 61. But no, he's probably going to outlive me. He's a European. Those guys live to be in their late 90s.
Bullshit.
Probably not anymore.
Bullshit. The people, listen. People in Europe, I don't care what the fuck the left is trying to indoctrinate you with. People in Europe die younger than we do of illnesses that we either cure or control.
Oh yeah.
Generally speaking, a 70-year-old European is old.
Yeah.
Very fucking old. In Spain, they're even older. I mean, you see them, they're almost archetypical. At 70 years, you don't wear shoes anymore. You wear one of those canvas shoes with plastic soles, rubber soles, and wear a cap. and a sleeveless sweater and walk very slowly towards this town square where you're going to play dominoes or checkers with the rest of the old farts. Eh,
Well, I noticed you don't see cartoon elderly people in this country. Like a lot of these actors who've died lately, like Donald Sutherland, he was like 86 years old. Donald Sutherland drank and smoked and partied and you
God,
know,
and snorted.
yeah, and he lived to be 86.
Yeah.
All these famous actors who died, they're all in their late 80s or even early 90s.
My mother is about to turn 89, and everybody she knew in Spain, in Turkey, and in Argentina is fucking dead.
Yeah, no, and I've seen her.
And
She's not a stereotypical. She's not like a like you see like old ladies in China, and they're all bent double, and they walk around with their hands behind their back, and they can barely shuffle
no,
around. Your mother doesn't strike me that way.
no,
Yeah.
and the last 4 years have been hard on her,
Mhm.
but she's still full of vitality, and that's the thing. Eh, People my age in Argentina are beginning to keel over. In Spain, they look at me as a town elder,
Yeah.
and and I don't find too many people older than me.
Well, both my parents lived to be 85, and neither of them declined mentally. They my father had drunk, and both of them were heavy smokers, so physically they had a lot of problems, but mentally they hadn't declined in the slightest. They were as sharp as they'd ever been, and they didn't
My
strike me as you
my
know.
uncle John Charles, eh, the man smoked 4 packs a day, drunk like a skunk. The son of a gun used to have scotch delivered, Johnny Walker
Mm,
delivered to his door like other people get milk.
mhm,
Mhm. At 92, his granddaughters convinced him to move into a home because he was theoretically in no shape to live by himself anymore. 3 weeks later, the director of the home called them in. We have a problem. And the problem was that they got him fornicating with the nurse.
mm.
Eh, I mean, 92 years, screwing the nurse with a glass of Johnny Walker in one hand and a cigarette on the other. That's the way I want to go. I'm sorry. That's the way I want to die. And Uncle John, that's exactly, he lived to be 96.
Mm.
Except that he was complaining. They were uh, uh, checking on him all the time just to make sure he didn't screw another nurse. It, People are built in different ways. We cannot generalize much. But generally speaking, this notion that Europeans live longer. Now, there are certain populations in Europe,
Mm.
mostly poor people who have never seen a fucking doctor in their lives, like peasants in the Urals, who live to be 120. They are the largest collection of people uh, uh, around 116 years of age is in this little town. Why? Nobody knows. But do you have an idea how that skews the statistics?
Mm.
So, do people live long in Russia? No, but these folks do.
Yeah, I mean the average white Russian male, the death rate now, the average is like 49 due to alcoholism and The life expectancy has been, it started dropping after the fall of the Soviet Union, and that was no party living in the Soviet Union, but today.
Kelly's saying here it's true. In Sardinia, people live past 100 in the mountainside farms. It's true.
Yeah, and see, what's interesting is that they tried like Greek diets, these populations that live to be 113. Oh, let's eat the way they do, and Americans, it makes no difference. It's genetics. It's keeping these Greeks alive. Look at all the diets we have in this country. The carnivore diet: eat nothing but meat. You'll live forever. Eat nothing but saturated fat, meat and butter. You'll live forever. No.
That's been my diet since I was born.
Yeah, and okay, be a vegan. Be a vegan. Don't eat anything that has nothing to do with animals. Be a pescatarian.
Do I look like a rabbit?
Be a free range pescatarian. Be I don't know. It's really funny because Americans are fat just because they eat too much of whatever it is they're eating. That's all. I watch a lot of cat videos, funny cat videos, and what I've noticed,
I love those.
The cats are stealing snacks. A person's watching TV and they've got a bowl, and it's got 24 chicken nuggets in it, and that's their nighttime snack. You know how many calories is in that bowl of chicken nuggets? That's 3,000 calories. So you're pounding down.
I wouldn't know. I avoid chicken.
Yeah, I mean, all these people are eating massively, heavily caloric snacks as they watch TV, and that's where the overweight comes from. Is that Americans eat all day. There's a snack culture that doesn't exist in the Greek fishing villages or whatever.
Yes, that's why we all have hyper developed jaws, because we're exercising them all day long. Americans are like carnivore ruminants. By the way, Blind Io says, I still maintain it's mostly genetic lottery. In my family, unless pretty much everyone lived into their 90s, regardless of whether they drank, smoked, or ate lard every day. True, I still think it's a lottery. I still think that if it's your turn to draw the Joker, you draw the Joker, and that's it. But as I get older, I pay less attention to people who think they know the causes of diseases we hardly fucking understand.
Well, okay, I watch a lot of true crime documentaries, and they always have psychiatrists and psychologists on, and the big argument is it nature or nurture that makes somebody into a criminal? And it's okay, it's both. And it's also a third element that nobody ever talks about, which is choice. It's choice that the person chooses to do. They choose to commit the crime. Nobody is forcing anybody to commit a crime. But we're always presented with these false choices. And why does it have to be either nature or nurture? It's obviously you're born with a predisposition, and sometimes your environment pushes that predisposition to the forefront. And then the final element is choice, whether you choose to do it. Because, they've done tests, the brains of psychopaths are different. But there are psychopaths who don't actually, if they were born to be a psychopath, but they were raised in a loving family that had, you know, two parents and you know, no stressors, then they're not actually going to manifest their psychopathy, you know. So you have these psychiatrists and psychologists, and all they're proving is that all of this is guesswork. You know, they're making their best guesses.
Yeah, no, and sometimes, you know, they say something because they have to. Kenny here says more and more Americans are having thyroid problems now. Bullshit. By the way, let me see if I can show you this.
A
See that
thyroid?
woman there? See that woman there in that picture?
That's a
That's
woman?
a carbon. That's a carbon drawing of my great grandmother,
Oh,
Manuela Ziegler, who suffered thyroid issues, hypothyroidism.
hmm
Let me see if I can put this back in some decent place. And we cannot resolve that issue with iodine in the water supply. I'm sorry, in the water supply and in common salt, in table salt. Now people are not using salt with iodine because we don't want, you know, we need a healthy America without any shit. We don't need fluoride in the water. We don't need iodine in the salt. And they forget that the reason those things were included was to resolve hypothyroidism problems, dental health issues, and they worked. They worked to the point that as of today, most people don't even have that kind of shit anymore. Now they're taking it away, and oh, now we have more people with thyroid problems. None of those assholes have made specific tests to determine whether they did have a thyroid problem or not. They think they do because some idiot in TikTok told them they do.
Well,
And I
when I first
bullshit on it.
when I first got on social media, I was a lot more open about my own mental health issues. But today, I don't talk about it because everybody and their uncle, they all have anxiety, depression, and what's the other one? Anxiety, depression, and PTSD. Every single person who's sitting in her car crying, or who's being pulled over by the cops, or who's standing at a microphone at a town hall meeting, they've all got anxiety, depression, and PTSD. It's all self-diagnosed, and those three disorders have lost all meaning. Those three terms have lost all meaning. If you say you have anxiety, it's like, oh, okay, you're one of those. And it's another situation where perfectly decent words have been ruined by being applied to, you know, racism.
To everything.
It doesn't mean anything anymore. You know?
I'm looking at the chat when we're talking, and people add the things, you know, bipolar, ADHD, and somebody puts TDS. Yeah, they're all like TDS.
Do you remember there was a fad where everybody had Tourette's syndrome, and there were all these people popping up on TikTok, you know, pretending they had Tourette's syndrome.
Yeah,
bro. Yeah.
It's all theatricals. Autism.
Yeah.
Well, there is no increase in autism, but we have gone from real autism to a range of autism, from garden variety that incapacitates the person to one that you barely know. If I barely notice he's not autistic, fuck you. If I cannot see the autistic in the autistic, it's not autistic.
Well, okay, they changed the name of Asperger's syndrome to high functioning autism. So that adds a massive percentage to the number of people who are being counted as autistic.
So we have an increase in autism. That's because we are counting people we didn't count before.
Yeah,
Uh,
and
I,
people.
I I don't see it more than I did before.
No, I don't think I've ever met an autistic person, and I've met thousands of people in my life.
I did. I met several. The child of a client of mine. She was barely functional, um, and I had to help the parents create trusts and all that jazz so that she would be taken care of when they were gone. That was the biggest problem. Um, they left enough money in the trust so that she could be taken care of without going into a type of Medicaid institution. Um, I remember a friend of my wife's in New York. They had an autistic child, but those are very sporadic. And of course, I throughout my life, and I have memories down to my school days, there was always a troubled kid, but that wasn't autism. That was an asshole.
Well, okay,
There's a difference.
Asperger's syndrome. It's basically you're just kind of you're not a people person, and you could be pretty unpleasant to be around. And then they say, oh, it's high functioning autism. You can't
Yeah,
help
but
yourself. It's like, well,
and sometimes you go, a narcissistic asshole throwing a tantrum. That's not autism.
yeah,
The same thing with
ADHD. Yeah,
ADHD. It's a give me a fucking break.
the second
Stop
they make
giving medication to kids
well,
and give them something to do.
the second they make a successful movie about someone who's got autism or ADHD or depression or anxiety, then suddenly the statistics in the general public skyrocket as all these people self-diagnose, or they have somebody else tell them, oh, well, you have autism, oh my God, I have autism. I better go on TikTok and tell everybody I've got autism. And it's I mean, obviously psychiatry is a very necessary science, but the reality
But
is,
psychoanalysis isn't.
what isn't?
Psychoanalysis.
Well, okay,
Psychiatry is a very necessary science.
yeah,
Psychoanalysis is bullshit.
well, okay. I went through a year and a half of talk therapy from a psychiatrist, and it was very helpful, but it only worked because I wanted to change. Someone like Woody Allen. Woody Allen went to the same psychoanalyst for 45 years until the guy died.
Yes.
And it did nothing to him. He like married his stepdaughter. So,
Yeah. And by the way, marrying his stepdaughter did the trick. Maybe the
uh,
problem with Woody Allen is that he was always surrounded by bitches.
well, I don't know. I saw a documentary about him, and he was the most boring guy I've ever seen interviewed in my entire life. He was
Yeah.
riding around in the back of a limousine. He was going, oh, there's the deli where we used to have sandwiches when I was a kid. Good sandwiches. Yeah, that's where I used to play basketball. It was a nice time. It was just like, you have nothing to say about anything. You're boring. Like why did you make a documentary about this guy? He's got nothing to say. He goes to basketball games and he watches basketball games. So you film him watching basketball games. He had nothing to say about movies. He didn't want to talk about movies. He wanted to talk about deli sandwiches.
He wanted to tell you about the New York he missed, which is more or less the story of his life. I used to run into him in, I think it was Thompson, one block north of Blicker. There was a little bar. He used to play the clarinet. Um, all kinds of village characters would get together at night to jam. And when I was done in the surf mate, I walk a couple of blocks and go into this place. And he was there playing the clarinet, being his foreign self, talked very little. But he was pretty decent playing jazz with, soft jazz. Um, and then every now and then I would see him for lunch at the Russian tea room right next to the Carnegie Hall. And again, he was as boring as your average New York pseudo intellectual. Nothing special about it.
Yeah, this documentary really proved it. That's why, I mean, what I never understood about this type of thing is like, okay, you're an actor. Why don't you just pretend you're interesting? Okay, like, is it going to kill you to pretend you're interesting
He's
in
not
this
an
documentary?
actor. He's not an actor. He was a very decent uh, comedic playwright.
Well, also he made tons of movies. He was an actor, and then he switched over to being a director, and then
No, he was a playwright long before. He only started acting in his own movies.
right, and
Um, he used to write uh, um, scripts for Get Smart. I think he did a couple for Taxi. Um then he started doing comedy. Well, the first one I remember is Bananas,
mm-hmm,
about a military coup in a Central American republic,
mm-hmm,
where the press is waiting and telling today there's going to be a coup, and the general so and so, the dictator, is going to come out of that door. He's going to come 4 steps down, look to the right, say, "What is going on?" And he's going to be shot. And of course, that's exactly what happens. It's
mm-hmm,
like all of these military coups in Central America are scripted.
mm-hmm,
It was very funny. It was a fairly keen observation of the bullshit surrounding the news industry, politics in South America. Then he did other comedies. All You Ever Wanted to Know About Sex.
mm-hmm.
Uh, it was funny. It was very funny. I still remember him dressed as a sperm, uh, waiting to be ejected and wondering, because some people told me that sometimes you hit a wall of latex. See what I mean? It was, and it was good humor. And then he got introspective in a very New York sort of way. And it started with Annie Hall,
Mm-hmm.
where there were still a few jokes of the old Woody Allen, but immersed in a flood of bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And after that came a shit ton of movies, all of them looking inwardly in a very intellectual way. Bullshit. Bullshit. And I think by interiors, I couldn't stand him anymore.
Well, he was in
But
love with Ingmar Bergman, and he wanted to be Ingmar Bergman. And I
yeah,
don't know if
all of that introversion bullshit. Yeah,
if you've ever seen an Ingmar Bergman movie, it's like,
all
oh
of
my
them.
God.
Well,
So,
remember that I was a young NYU student. If I wanted to get laid, I had to take a girl to see a Bergman movie, or maybe a Godard movie, and it was a very high. I knowing what I know today, if I have to choose between paying 1,500 to knock off a Playboy centerfold, or taking the girl to see a Godard movie, I'll pay the 1,500. Because, God, how did I suffer with this pseudo intellectual bullshit?
Oh, I don't know. For someone like Woody Allen, aging is a diminishing, and in my case, I keep getting surprised that I'm in my 60s because I don't feel any different. I remember being in kindergarten, and of course, I've changed, but I'm also the same person, and so I don't sit around thinking, oh, I'm 63. Oh God, it
Oh,
never
shut up,
crosses.
kiddo.
Well, it never crosses my
You're too
mind
young.
because I've got I've got so much stuff going on that
Yeah.
it doesn't. I don't have time to ride around in a limousine. I also I there's nowhere. Okay, I was born in Caripito in Venezuela. I can't even find. If I went there, I wouldn't remember a damn thing. I grew up in Tijuana and then Tyler, Texas. I went back to Tyler, Texas in the year 2000, and I didn't recognize anything. It was just like, okay.
It's a different world.
And then I lived in Rijswijk in the Netherlands. I lived in London near Regent's Park. Lived in Stavanger, Norway. Lived in Portland, Oregon, and Tokyo, and then San Francisco. There's no place that I want to go back and tour. It's like I'm going to be leaving this place because California is, gradually becoming uninhabitable. So I'll end my days in Las Vegas probably, and I won't be pining for any particular place. So that's the good part about not spending your entire time in a city like New York and watching it change.
No, it's a, but he is a New Yorker, and I know a lot of people like him. Emery here says that he talks about the funniest thing that he ever wrote was what if the impressionist had been dentist. That's the kind of absurd humor that he loved. And he speaks of Without Feathers. I have it here, Without Feathers. It's a tiny little book, but it is some of the brightest humor to come from that generation. And it's a tiny book, a pocket book, really. Nothing too complicated to read. Maybe at the VIP room I'll bring some uh, so that people get familiar with it. But it was excellent humor, self-deprecating, absurd. Um,
I
it
always
was
thought
very early on.
I always thought Woody Allen's best movie was Stardust Memories, and that's the one that all the critics hate because they claim that it's Woody Allen attacking his audience. And I didn't see that at
Mm.
all. I saw that as a guy navigating this nightmare existence that okay, I have these dreams where I'm totally lost in some completely unknown city, and I'm trying to find my way home. And Stardust Memories to me was a movie about a guy who was lost in a nightmare, and he pulled it off really brilliantly. And it also dealt with mental illness. He was with Charlotte Rampling, and everybody asked him, she's crazy. Why do you stay with her? And it's like, well, because 2 days out of the month, she's like the best girlfriend you could ever have. And, I just thought it was a great movie, and it's his most hated movie. Everybody loves Annie Hall and what's the one? There's one where he's in his 40s and he's dating a 17-year-old. Mario Hemingway.
Mary Hemingway, that was Mary Hemingway's first movie.
Yeah,
And yeah, there is a hint of Lolita in the subtext. Um, Those
But I
movies
haven't.
bored me.
But I haven't. I
Barcelona
haven't.
bored me to tears.
I haven't watched the Woody Allen movie since Stardust Memories, which is it may have been made in the '70s. I don't even remember. But
Yeah, it was in the 70s.
yeah. When I finally did see Annie Hall, it wasn't for me. It was too. I don't know. I
There are only two lines in Annie Hall that I rescue. One was something that they're talking about having been in Philadelphia, and he says, "Oh, I spent the whole year of my life one weekend in Philadelphia."
mm,
I think that's a beautiful way of describing Philly,
mm,
because it's true. It's a boring fucking city, and the other is they're standing in line to see something, I believe, by Vonnegut, and they're discussing what he wanted to say with this, what he wanted to say with that, and he said, "No, no, 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 that's all bullshit. It was simpler than that. He was just describing this." And no, 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 what do you know about this? Get out of here. So he says, "Okay." And he goes to the back and comes back with Vonnegut.
mm,
Eh, Could you please tell this guy why you wrote this? And Vonnegut goes for the simple explanation. And this guy says, "Oh, you don't know anything about about how Vonnegut writes." It
mm,
was a criticism at the pseudo intellectuality of New York.
mm.
And those are the two things in Annie Hall. The rest of the movie, they can show it up their ass. Uh, Gonzalo says, "I'm almost 30, and a 17-year-old might as well be 7 to me. No idea what some old farts see in 18 years old." I don't either, but Mario Hemingway at that time didn't look like your average 17-year-old.
Well, there's some football coach who's like almost 80, and he's got a 23-year-old girlfriend, and their relationship is the talk of the town, and it's just really depressing because you know she's got the coldest, hardest eyes of anybody I've ever seen, and he's just like, of course I pay her. Why else would she be with me? But
And another guy I knew, he was constantly reminded by his friends that his much, much younger wife uh, didn't marry him for love. Like the guy was in his 80s, the woman was 27. Like, sure, she married for love. Uh, and he would say things like, at my age, you will realize that it is better to have a 10% of a successful business than 100% of a failing one. With her, I have 10% of a successful business. The 10% that I get is more than enough to cover my needs. Whatever she has in excess, it's her own business. That was a very realistic old fart who managed to have a very interesting trophy next to him till the moment he croaked. I also knew another guy, a writer, 80, he had twins at 82 with a 40-year-old librarian. Um, I don't remember now, but Charlie Chaplin and Owen O'Neill were like 40 years apart as well. And Geraldine Chaplin is the result of that.
mm,
So I don't know. I do think that to each his own. And I find it amazing that people who want me to accept uh, matrimonies between women, and between men and women who think they're women or men, uh, then object to the fact that this guy is too old. Oh, give me a fucking break.
well, they also object if it's the woman who's too old.
Yes. Oh God, like Macron.
Yeah.
Macron is the graduate on real time. Somebody posted a trailer for Woody Allen in the forum. Doesn't Soros have a young wife? If he does, he doesn't remember. Um, an old R&B song, 10% of something beats 100% of nothing. Um, Soros Jr. and Uma Abedin.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. She went from that hideous congressman to that
You mean
bizarre,
Anthony Weiner?
yeah, that bizarre owl, that whatever Soros Jr.'s first name is. So yeah, he's with Uma and her shark mouth. God, these people are just. I remember Vanity Fair ran an article, the hottest women in Hollywood, in Washington. They're all Democrats. It was like Uma Abedin, Samantha Power, just all these weirdos who just like, they just radiated menace and corruption and
Well, you know that if all women were like Samantha Powers, I would have died a virgin.
well, I just, it was just bizarre. It was just totally bizarre. This is the party of seeing women as strong and independent and equal to men and hot. They're hot. Look how hot they are.
Yeah.
As I recall, they had Samantha Power.
Yeah.
They had Samantha Power squatting, and it was like, okay, that's I've never seen them make a male intellectual squat in his pose, but a woman, it's okay, I guess. It was just really bizarre.
Well, I have to thank you. I have to thank you very much. Now I'm going to have the image of Samantha Power squatting. Oh my God. If I don't cut off my balls tonight, I'll come this close.
Well, she's a redhead, and redheads
I don't know.
age.
I don't know. I've never seen the carpets.
Redheads never age very well when they're out in the sun a lot. And
My first wife was a redhead, and she's let me see, I'm 60. She's about 72 now, and she's aged very graciously. She's a very beautiful woman still. Um, the problem with Samantha Powers is not that she's a redhead or not. The problem with that woman is that she is fucking ugly. She looks like a chicken with tuberculosis. I mean, really, when you look at her, do you see a woman or do you see some kind of bird?
well, I always thought when she started calling herself the genocide chick, I just thought, wow, that's amazingly disrespectful to the whole concept of genocide. And you've just shown us that you don't actually give a shit about genocide.
Of course.
She got famous by writing a book called something like The Problem with Genocide or something like that. And she was at Harvard, and then that's how Obama heard of her. So she started calling herself the genocide chick, and that she came up with this political concept called responsibility to protect, saying that other countries have the responsibility to invade, say, North Korea in order to protect the North Korean population from their own government. And so they did that in Libya, and we've seen the results.
We see the results. Yes, indeed. It worked like a charm.
Yeah.
You know what could have spurred us all is if we threw over Libya leaflets with this image and say, if you don't surrender, we'll send her over to you. Oops. I had it there. Press the wrong button. Yep. There we go. Look at that. What the hell is that?
Dude looks like a lady.
Because you cut that hair, and that is a dude. That is the drunken Irishman in your local bar.
Yeah, the years have not been kind to her. That's for sure.
Come on, it's and she wasn't that old in this picture, you know. Now she's a fucking scarecrow.
Well, these people are all heavy drinkers, and you know, my brother has a good point. I don't know if you've heard, but everybody's talking about how terrible Generation Z is aging. They're aging really fast. That all these Generation Z celebrities look much older than their chronological age, and I think it's the advent of all these synthetic drugs that you know, these are brand new drugs that haven't been around long enough for us to see the after effects. And also Generation Z, they're starting to get cosmetic surgery at like the age 20, 21, 22. And I just learned about a surgical procedure today that I hadn't heard of. All of us have this fat pad in our cheeks right here, and you get it sucked out to give you this hollow cheeked look. And the problem is exactly, it ends up aging you dramatically. You look much older than you actually are. You look hatchet faced.
Yeah, you end up looking like Samantha Powers.
Exactly. And you combine that with the lifestyles, and you end up with, like, there's some Kardashian spin-off sister, Kylie Jenner. Kylie Jenner is like 23 years old, and she looks like she's 45. It's like shocking. And she's now starting to reverse all the cosmetic surgery because she looks horrible. And we've never had so many people getting cosmetic surgery, and it's especially young people. So I don't know. It's very odd.
I don't know. I really, the more I look at these things, it's the more I am fascinated, but in the wrong possible way. Because it's the fascination of the act. It's the fascination of rubbernecking when there is a multiple car accident with limbs popping out of windows. Um, yeah, you wanna see the detail, but that doesn't mean you like it. And the same thing happens to me. I'm also perplexed as to the Democrat notion that they can talk us into admiring the most butt ugly women in the history of mankind. You know, people like Samantha and Uma Abedin. Uma Abedin could have been cute, but like the portrait of Dorian Gray in reverse, uh, her face now carries the evil she's done. Um, don't get me started with Hilarita. She was never pretty, but now she's the portrait of ugliness. And it's
Well,
not because I'm predisposed, which I would be anyway, but objectively, ugly as fucking sin.
Hillary is a titanic drinker, and people underestimate the power of drink. Drink has this latent damage clause that even, okay, someone like Richard Harris, the actor Richard Harris, it was Richard Harris, Richard Burton, Peter O'Toole, I forgot it, Oliver Reed, and one other guy. they were all known for their drinking. They would all go out drinking together, and with the exception of Oliver Reed, Peter O'Toole lost his looks almost immediately. Richard Burton died at 58.
Yep.
Richard Harris stopped drinking relatively early, but
the damage was done. You could see it in his nose.
You could see it. I mean, he kept aging, and he made this really great movie called Man versus the Wilderness, where he's left behind by his traveling band after he's mauled by a bear, and then he survives on his own and follows him. And he was fit. The guy was an athlete, but he had this fit body with this old man's head on top of it, and it was all booze. And some of these people, like Hillary, I'm okay. Bill, I don't know if you've seen Bill lately. Bill has almost completely lost his voice.
Bill is a zombie.
He's a zombie, and
you know that almost transparent skin,
yeah,
which is also symptomatic. This man has not spent an hour sober in the past 40 years.
Yeah. No, all these people. Okay, look at Kamala. Kamala put on 15 years in about a year. And it was the rumors were that she was bombed all the time. She was, hammered. And okay, Biden. Look at Biden. They're saying that they've announced that Biden has metastasized stage 4 prostate cancer.
Yeah, it went all the way to his brain 5 years ago.
Well, prostate cancer that metastasized to your bone, prostate cancer is very slow growing, and it's very unusual that it metastasizes like that, unless, in his annual presidential physical fitness, did they not catch it? Of course they caught it.
Yes, they did. They were treating him. Remember, you and I made fun of him because in 22 he was doing this plaintive bullshit appearance in a industrial zone in Delaware, and he was talking about how when he was a kid, his mama would take him to car rides, and they had to put the windshield wipers because of all the oil coming in, and that's why I and others who grew up here have cancer. 22.
Yeah.
I made fun of it in our shows. I thought he was yet again lying, but this time apparently he was telling the truth, the one that he wasn't supposed to. Um, he had cancer. He had cancer before the elections. Uh, he was treated for it for the past 7 years at least.
Oh yeah, I mean, if he's got metastasized prostate cancer, that means he probably had it. It probably started
in 2015.
Somewhere around the time that he was vice president with Obama.
In 2015, somewhere around the time his son croaked. Okay, so he's had it all the time. Now it's stage 4. Went through the lymphatic system into the bones. My guess is it's gonna start appearing all over the fucking body of this. Uh, I'm not sorry. Fuck him. Why should I give a shit? I'm not gonna give him a pass for the years he lied because he's gonna die at 90 with prostate cancer. Fuck him. It's. I really cannot believe that people are wasting so much time with this lying asshole. But yeah, he had cancer for the past 10 years. Yes, they knew it. They lied to the American people. When you look at uh, they lied to the American people. I say that like it's a fucking piece of news. Um, they do that every second. You can check, the results of annual checkups on presidents. They're published. You can
Mhm.
look them online, and you're gonna see the what is it, the TSA for President Bush, for President Clinton, for President Obama, for President Trump. And suddenly that's the one value that doesn't appear in the blood tests of President Biden.
Mhm.
I wonder why. Was it an oversight? Of course, fucking no. But there was the specific order that the physician they brought into the White House, who had access to Biden with exclusivity, uh, just would have them keep the secret. If he had come out in 2020 with the fact that he was in cancer treatment for 4 years, that would have been the kiss of death for his
Mhm.
primary campaign. So they lied. And somehow I don't think that should surprise us at all. It's like this fucker, Jake Tapper. Oh my God, he lied to us about his cognitive state. You gotta be fucking kidding me.
Well, his book tour, Tapper's book tour, has been a catastrophe for him because the more he talks, the more he exposes his own dishonesty and duplicity.
Yeah. And by the way, there's so many of them coming. Kelly, I feel sad for him. No, I don't. No, I don't. I shall not feel sad for a son of a bitch. Um, I never even cared for Biden. The way he treated Clarence Thomas, the already nominee, what he said on the Judicial Committee with Ted Kennedy and Chris Dodd, obnoxious jerks. Yeah, that's the story of his life. I don't feel sad for obnoxious jerks. Biden was probably getting massive vitamin B injections before that last State of the Union address, maybe a little bit of Coke too. No vitamin B, just Coke. Um, FDR is another one, and Woodrow Wilson. How about Jack Kennedy,
Oh God, what disease didn't he have?
including chlamydia and syphilis, because he fucked anything that want. But by the way, what do FDR, Wilson, um, Biden, and Kennedy have in common?
The press covered up how ill they were.
Number one, they're all Democrats. I'm beginning to believe that the relationship between a Democrat president and everybody, including the president, lying about the health of the president is related to each other.
Mhm.
These people are like the Soviet Politburo. Comrade Brezhnev is a little under the weather today. He had been embalmed 6 days ago. Same thing with these assholes.
Mhm.
Debbie saying, did JFK bunk Pelosi? Most likely. There is a picture of JFK and a young Pelosi, and JFK is looking at Pelosi like the cat that ate the canary. That picture alone, to me, tells me that yes, he did bunk her. At the very least, she did a Lewinsky on him. Uh, Day one, Biden put up an FDR painting on the wall and desk, but I can't figure out why he put Chavez bust in the office. Hmm? Oh, Cesar Chavez? You can't figure it out? Yeah, you need to review your knowledge of Democrats. Fuck me. But he did take. Uh, uh, um, oh, I'm having. Why am I having a brain freeze right now? Um, Churchill.
Hmm.
Why did he take Churchill out? Which is one of the first things that Trump did in the Oval Office was restore Churchill to his place. Why did he take him out?
Well, Biden's machine was all Obamaites, and the Obamaites hated Churchill. So remember,
Yeah.
Obama took Churchill out.
Yep. And Conquistador says Chavez hated wetbacks. No, he used them. He made money off of wetbacks. Chavez worked for the big farmers, and he would call on strikes on payday. Get it? But anyway, he's thought to be a god here. Chavez was the worst fucking asshole ever in California history. His brother designed a flag for his movement that is essentially the Nazi eagle on a Nazi frame. The red flag with the white circle and the Nazi eagle instead of the swastika. These were awful fucking people. Oh, I don't think there is enough spite in me for Cesar Chavez. Um,
Well, that's true. The United Farm Workers flag is totally Nazi-like.
but come on! Oh, you had to. You looked it up.
Yeah.
I take that uh, uh, um, as a prize. But yeah, let me see if I can find it here and show it to people.
Yeah, look, United Farm Workers,
Yeah,
UFW flag.
and it's like you had to look it up because people cannot even believe that this is true, but it is true. And this was designed by Cesar Chavez's own fucking Nazi brother. No, this is too small. Hold on.
Well, the Nazi Party was the National Workers. Let's see, NASDAP. So it's like the National uh, Workers Socialist German. Oh God. Let's see.
Okay, there we are. And I have another one for you here. Okay, this is Chavez's. There you go. It's a stylized Nazi eagle in a Nazi flag. Just replace the black Nazi eagle for the black swastika.
Yeah.
Mm, that was it. Now, if that isn't scary enough, take a look at how they have upgraded it lately. Now we have the communist fist
Wow.
with Obama's Yes We Can slogan and the same Nazi motif.
Yeah. What the hell do farm workers have to do with an eagle?
Nothing. Uh, so I'm sorry, but I've seen enough shit. I can't buy this crap anymore. And Chavez, God, I raised such hell because in Virginia schools, They teach kids about the three great Americans.
Mhm.
And the three great Americans they're taught about. Remember, they don't have classes about Jefferson, Washington, Paul Revere, General Warren, Nathaniel Greene, uh, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin. No, those don't need to study anymore. The three great Americans are Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and Cesar Chavez. Think about that for a second. If that isn't enough to close the Department of Education permanently, I don't know what is. And Chavez, I mean, the things he used to do to fuck farmers, the fortune he made betraying them, it's uncanny. He should be reviled by anybody who has anything to do with the fruit picking business. Son of a bitch. But anyway, what do you want? A fucking Nazi? No wonder. No wonder people like Obama idolize him. And we're almost hold on. Uh, apparently, the U.S. southern border cures tropical disease. The whole medical system. Oh fuck me! People are. It's so difficult for me to take. Oh, somebody. You know, everybody's a doctor in YouTube. Sunglasses might help your eyes, Thomas. Yeah, sure. You're gonna cure glaucoma with sunglasses. Perfect.
Well,
Don't
you shrink your prostate by drinking cold water before you go to bed, and it's a secret
yes,
the medical industry has been trying to cover up.
yes.
But it's
For
on
decades.
YouTube. It's on
Yeah.
YouTube. Some robot
And
voice will tell you all about it.
you know there is the secret Japanese ritual. You squat up your ass, and that will shrink your prostate.
Mm.
Actually, I don't think it will, but if you shove zucchinis up your ass long enough, you probably won't give a shit anyway. Idiots. Um, I want Republicans to take Cali. We have 6 million plus voters. Not enough, Conquistador. I'm sorry. What you need is Jefferson State. Uh, you can probably take Jefferson State. Apple cider vinegar up the keister works great, says Gonzalo. Yes, down your ear and up your keister. That's gonna cure everything. And if you mix it with toothpaste and rat's liver, it's absolutely. But you know, you have to get your own rat's liver because they don't sell them in supermarkets. I'm told that in China they use the grated penis of a tiger. Have you seen those in U.S. Pharmacies, Thomas?
Grated tiger kidneys.
No, penises.
Oh, no, I couldn't identify a tiger penis if you held a gun to my head.
Yeah. Well, you know, maybe the label, but why should pay less for tiger penises than we do? We should have the same availability and price. Where the hell do these things come from? That's a whole other. That's a whole. What do you mean cats don't have peckers? You've never seen my cat. My cat had a serrated penis. No wonder cats scream when it's pulled out. Alex Jones sells an elixir that will cure anything. Well, no surprise there. Um, Looks like a carrot, says Gonzalo. Yeah, there you go. Um, now people are planning to reorganize the geography of Washington state. How about you end absentee ballot, which is, I understand, practically the only way you can vote in Oregon and Washington,
Yeah.
and the only way you can vote in more than half of California. How about you end that? Maybe, just fucking maybe, you'll have a chance then. Anyway, let me just tell you, folks, uh, if you watch this for 3 hours, you obviously freaking either A, you love us, or B, you're a very sick puppy. I'll stay with us. I prefer that. And if you do, uh, you may want to support us, buy us a cup of coffee or something, so that we can keep our forum and these programs going. And to do so, there are two ways. If you're in Odyssey, the links are right under this video. If you're in YouTube, the same thing. If you're in X, no. But you can always, it's very easy, make a donation, whether it is a one-time donation or a monthly contribution at quadverum.com/support us. And if you're in Twitter, we made it easy. You can subscribe to at the brother lie. We cannot yet have subscriptions in Thomas's timeline, so for the moment, this is it, and that is it. Uh, Throw us $5 per month. That's not even a Starbucks coffee, and if enough people do it, we're gonna be okay. We're gonna keep doing this for a number, for quite a number of years yet. And having said all of that, Thomas,
Yes, sir.
do you have a last word for us tonight?
Traducer.
Traducer or traducer?
Traducer. Traducer.
Traducer.
Traducer. Traducer.
Perfect. I love that. And it's not translator for all of you out there. Live long and prosper, and may you not be traduced. I think I got that one. Good night.